Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the SHAIR podcast. And today we have Meredith Atwood joining us on the show. And Meredith she wears a lot of hats. She's in recovery. She's an extreme sports athlete. She's a coach. She's an author. She's a mom. She's an incredible woman. And this is definitely one of those interviews where my listeners made a point to let me know that they could relate. She's an absolute sweetheart. So I know you're going to love this episode. But before we dive into Meredith's episode, if you enjoy watching the SHAIR podcast interviews on YouTube, then click subscribe on the YouTube channel below, as well as go to the SHAIRpodcast.com, our website, where you can check out all our offerings, including the SRC, the SHAIR Recovery Membership Community. The link is also below. And finally, make sure to check out omarpinto.com for those of you that would love to get some one-on-one coaching with me. So without further ado, let's dive into today's episode with Meredith Atwood. Welcome to the SHAIR podcast. I'm your host, Omar Pinto, and today's guest is Meredith Atwood. Thanks for joining us today, Meredith.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
I'm excited to have you on the show. How are you feeling?
Good. I feel really good today. I got in a workout, ate some food, woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. So I've worked a full day and more to go. It's a good day.
All right. Good to go. Excellent. All right. So I want to introduce Meredith. Meredith Atwood is a former attorney, sober warrior, podcaster, and motivational speaker. She's the author of Triathlon for the Every Woman and The Year of No Nonsense. She's the host of the iTunes Top 50 Fitness Podcast, the same 24 hours. I will be on there soon. A sobriety advocate and the founder of Grateful Sobriety, a USA Weightlifting Level 2, USA Triathlon Level 1, and Precision Nutrition Level 1 coach. She is originally from Georgia and lives in the burbs of Boston, Massachusetts, with her husband and 2 tweens. Is that accurate, Meredith?
Which part? I think so. It's a little bit of a yard sale, but it's just so true to my last 10 years. I mean, it's trying to figure out my life. So I've accumulated a lot of list type things that I've done.
You have. It feels like sometimes every time somebody asks me for my bio, I got to add something.
I know. And it seems silly at some point. I almost just feel like I'm just going to say, I'm married, I have some Legos, and we have a lizard. See what happens, because it's just getting silly, the list. And none of it makes sense. None of it intersects. But you know what? That's what happens. That's what happens. That's how you build a life, right?
And you start a podcast episode so we can kind of get an idea of who you are, and then I can kind of poke at you and see which ones of these topics I want to talk about.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're probably going to dive into the sober warrior more than anything. But first, Meredith, please tell us what your normal daily routine looks like.
Yeah, so I love getting up early. My kids get up early. My husband gets up early. So it's almost like we race for the morning coffee and quiet time. So that was 4 a.m. this morning because I knew they were getting up early. And I thought, well, if I get up at 4. So I love to get up early and meditate, journal. I read the Daily Stoic every day, and then just do some work that makes me happy or something that's really tedious and just requires, like video editing or podcast editing, something that just takes a lot to do, where I can listen to music and just kind of chill out. So I do that until like maybe 10, and then I like to get a workout in and then back to work till about 5 or 6. And I work from home. I've done that since 2016, and obviously now during our quarantine. So I sit at a desk most of the day, but
I understand.
Yeah.
Yes, it sounds very familiar. Everything that you're just describing there sounds
you're like,
so familiar. I'm like, yes, that does.
And I drink like 3 pots of coffee.
That
Literally.
too.
It's not an exaggeration. It's like 1 pot of coffee from 4 to 6, one from. Yeah, I know. I mean, they
both have coffee.
This is like number, and I'm not exaggerating. I'm really working on telling lots of truths lately. This is like 5. But it is 3:00, which I really should quit drinking coffee now because I got to go to bed in a little bit,
A little bit.
like 6 hours.
Okay. You're good. If you stop now, you might be all right. So
I don't go to bed at 9. That's what I say in my mind. I'm
yeah,
like, 9:00 is when I go to bed. No, I don't. I go to bed at like 11:30 and then peel myself out of bed at 5. I'm terrible about going to bed.
no, that's, I think as we get older, right? And I think clean living also makes a difference too. I'm not recovering from too much, maybe a little too much coffee, but other than that, I'm not really recovering from the stuff I used to recover from.
Right. I mean, mornings feel easy. It's like, what? 4 hours of sleep? I'm sober. It's easy.
Yeah, totally. Piece of cake. So
Right.
speaking of sobriety, tell us a little bit about what your recovery routine looks like.
Yeah. So I strong armed my sobriety. I did not higher power it. I did not 12-step it. I believed that I could strong arm it. And the interesting thing about that is about year 2, that didn't feel so good anymore. It sort of got hard. And I've heard this from a lot of people. And then I'm in year 4.3 about now, and I'm actually starting to work the legit steps at this point. If that sounds crazy, it's not. It's actually very grounding. Making amends feels good. Steps 8 and 9 feel good, where I think 4 years ago, it might have scared me to death. So everything in good time, but I also think I could have saved myself a lot of pain had I just worked the program as, millions of people have told me to do. But there was something about not surrendering that was really part of my personality. I was like, I am not powerless. I will not surrender. I will do this myself. And I did, and it felt good. But as anyone who has struggled with alcohol knows, at some point you got to lay it down and you've got to surrender and breathe and figure out where it all went wrong. And so that process, I'm actually in sort of, the middle of it. That Latin phrase, in medias res, is very much my life right now, which means in the middle of things. So it's a joyful place, but I'll go for a week where I'm feeling just on top of the world. And then I kid you not, I could go sit in a corner and rock. I mean, I could just be in the corner, like, give me something, just give me something to take the edge off anything. And it's crazy. It's such a bizarre feeling to surrender and say, whoops, I'm an addict. This is such a bummer. Because when you say, oh, I'm sober, I did this myself. Well, you just slide into another addiction. You just add on food or whatever. I mean, pick it. I can be addicted to it. And so learning that, oh, you just don't go to the kitchen and make 12 brownies and eat those, and you don't go cutting, and you don't start smoking again. You just like do nothing. You sit with yourself. And that is terrifying. It is the hardest thing I have ever had to do. And yet here I am. I'm alive. I made it through another day. And it is one day at a freaking time. It really is.
Very well said. Very well said. And now is a time for everyone to do exactly that. There is this opportunity to slow things down and go within and sit with those feelings. Those uncomfortable feelings, those uncomfortable thoughts that for many people is so difficult to just sit and feel.
Yes.
I mean, 30 seconds without anything, a guided meditation, some sort of noise in the background, just allow yourself to just allow the thoughts to come in, the feelings to emerge. And it does, like, as soon as you start to feel an emotion, you don't know how to process these feelings. Many of us don't. It's like, whoa, yeah, I got to put something on. I need to go, no, this isn't working. This isn't working. Right. And you want to run, and your mind distracts you with all kinds of other stuff. Oh, you forgot to pick up this at the grocery store, or, you didn't, edit the podcast episode for this week, or you didn't, right? Like, it starts to distract you, and it prevents you from just sitting and asking the tough questions or listening to or feeling those emotions that come up. And I like what you said there too, because I think that if you're not ready for that really, really deep work, and you're just getting sober, it might do a little more damage than good. You might you might come across some feelings that you were using the alcohol and the drugs to numb yourself with in the first place. And now here I am, so raw and so vulnerable because of everything that's happened because of the drugs and the alcohol. And now I'm forced to sit and kind of go back in time or process these feelings and emotions. And yeah, I think that if there's a little bit of a time where you can, I guess, heal in different ways, because you're going to heal when you do that kind of work. Right. You're going to heal, but you really need the right people that you can trust to help you process it.
Right. Right. And I feel like in early sobriety, you're almost like a caged animal, and like just real cagey. Or, I mean, I guess I shouldn't say you. I felt very cagey. I didn't really trust myself, so I didn't trust anyone else naturally. And what would I have made amends to, like existing at that point? It's like, oh, I'm sorry for existing. Who do I make amends to for that? Because I am a horrible person. And so it's interesting. I picked up Russell Brand's book, Recovery, many years ago, and I just read it a couple of weeks ago. And he had said he was sober, I think 4 or 5 years before he legit worked step 4 and started doing the hard work. And I thought, gosh, that's really interesting. And I don't know what the stats are on when people tackle that, but I imagine that probably would have sent me into a bottle had I done it too quickly, because I did have to do some healing and to be ready for it. And sitting with the emotions is so terrifying, and to hear the voices in my head that are telling me, like, go find something to plug this hole, go find something to make you feel well. And it was so crazy. The other night I told my husband where it went, and I said, well, and it's interesting because drinking really doesn't hold it for me anymore. I don't have a desire to drink. I've kind of written it off, but I thought, okay, I don't drink, and I'm on a food plan, so I'm not going to go eat. My daughter has some oxy from her broken arm. I was never a pill popper, never a thing. And I'm like, there's oxy. Oh, wait, I have a pack of cigarettes stashed in the back of the closet in case of emergencies. I could cut. I mean, I literally went from how can I hurt myself in this moment? What is there that I can do? Can I go break my finger? What can I do to make the emotional pain stop just for a minute? And it was crazy. And when I said oxy to my husband, he was like, are you kidding me? And I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do the oxy. And I was like, it's a kid's dose anyway, but there's 4 of them. And, but just that addict brain, just to trail it and to see where it goes, it makes perfect sense why for years I would just jump into a pizza. I mean, it makes perfect sense. Binge eating is just drinking in another form. It's the same monster.
It is. Were you able to allow in that moment? Because you were obviously trying to distract yourself, trying to escape, trying to run. You recognized that you were doing it. Did you allow a thought, an emotion? Did something come up?
Well, that's when I told my husband what I was thinking. For me, it's about being vulnerable that I don't like to do. I like to keep my prickly outer skin, my cat, fuzzy as a cactus. And so I went and told him, and I was like, can I have a hug? And he's like, okay, yeah, you can have a hug. And he's he wants to hug me. I'm not that terrible, but I'm not one to say, oh my gosh, I'm hurting. Please help me. Because the conditioning I had as a child was never that. It was, you're on your own. You better take care of yourself, and you better take care of us, your parents. It was I was not nurtured. They would argue, but we're good now. We've had our conversations, but they would argue they nurtured me. They did not nurture me. I was very
They're
strong.
Always going to argue. Always.
They were good parents, but there was no nurturing.
We did the best we could.
you didn't hug me enough. No, or you hugged me too much. I don't know, one or the other. But so I'm not one to say I'm suffering right now. This is hard for me. So that's what I did. I did the hard thing, which was admit I was suffering and asked for a hug, and it helped. There it was. I mean, it calmed it down, and then I did some Spanish on Duolingo because that's my kind of escape when I feel the need that I need to do something destructive. I do Duolingo on my phone because I'm like, maybe I can learn Spanish. I mean, it's about finding a healthy pathway to take yourself down, I think, and it's that simple and that complicated.
No, it's I love the way you said that. It's so simple and so complicated. The process is simple, we're complicated. And we want to hold on to, there's all these secondary benefits that go along with drama. So I want the drama, I want the intensity, I want what's familiar. What's familiar is the pizza, what's familiar is the oxy. It's the numbing. And I know that this is going to allow me to circumvent what's happening right now. And that's why I asked you the question, what surface? Well, I was vulnerable. I talked to my husband. I'm like, okay, I'm still waiting. And it was like, I need a hug. There's the simplicity of it all. The simplicity of it all is that I am feeling uncomfortable and I'm not quite sure what it is, but I could really use some nurturing, some love, some connection.
Yeah.
Then you go to your husband. Huh?
Yeah, I think it's the connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like I'm feeling disconnected, and I don't know how to reconnect. And actually, subconsciously, I don't even know I'm having this conversation because I'm not having a conversation. I just feel uncomfortable, and I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah.
And the minute you go to your husband and you say that, and you get the hug, it's like, oh. This is it. This is all I need. I needed some oxytocin.
Just needed a hug.
I just needed it's so simple.
Yeah.
But wow, think about people that live alone. Think about people that don't have access to connection in that space. Like I can just walk across my house.
Right.
But what happens when people, like, if this is the issue, then what do I do? So I have to connect in some way. And fortunately, we have Zoom. It will work. Zoom, a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know what to do. And I go, why don't you join us on some of our Zoom calls? Because I have an online community where we do Zoom calls like 10 times a week. Wow. And I'm like, join the Zoom call. Well, that's not going to work. It's like,
not if that's what you say. You're right.
You're right. But really, it's more of contempt before investigation.
Right. Right.
And so you are just assuming that this discomfort is so strong and so powerful. Sharing this with other people, that's going to help. And I've watched it happen like this. In the middle of a Zoom call, I've watched people transform the color of their skin, their pigment, okay, where their shoulders are, how they're breathing. It changes radically within an hour, but you have to kind of give yourself that chance. So I love that we kind of tangented, because this is what recovery is. This is what we're talking. We started with what's your recovery, what does your recovery routine look like? And we come to find out that this was Meredith's path. It took her 4 years to feel comfortable enough to start working the steps. Come to find out that if maybe this painful work, if you would have started too soon, might have done more harm than good. And in all fairness, I did the steps in NA using the step working guide. I was on year 3 when I was making amends.
Okay. Because
it's such an intense, it's this thick workbook where each one of the steps has first step has I think 68 questions. Step 4 has 86 questions. Oh yeah. So you got plenty of time. You got plenty of time to get to a place where you're emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically ready to deal with whatever this step kind of presents for you without rushing the process. I don't think I could have done it, sooner than that. So I I caution everyone to take your time.
Yeah. And one of the things I noticed too, as I'm working through this, is my tendency to withdraw.
Mm-hmm.
So in the past, I would feel the need for the substance, whatever it is, that, the need to escape. I would do the thing to escape, and then I would hide. I would pull back. I would go into a corner. I would play on my phone. I would pull out of my life after I did the thing, after, whether it was drinking or eating, whatever. And then I'd be by myself with my thoughts and my feelings, And so I've noticed too that I have to kind of peel myself out of wherever I'm standing or sitting and go be with the people in my house. And that sounds so like, are you serious? You have to go peel? Yes, I do, because I'm an addict, and addicts love shame and darkness and hiding. We don't think we love it, but that was my reality. I'd hide in the bathroom. I'd hide in the bathtub. I'd go take a bath every night and call it relaxing, when really I was just hiding. And now we moved into a house that doesn't have a real bathtub. So I eliminated that problem. But yeah, I noticed after I had the hug, my husband walked out of the room, and I could have just hung out in the kitchen and scrolled on Instagram, eaten pickles, because I'm allowed to eat many pickles as I want, and just been separate. And instead I was like, I'm going to follow him. I'm going to follow the love into the next room and just be around it. And then here come the children, and it's like, oh, so much love. And it is. And I don't mean to sound ungrateful, but I think anyone that is an addict knows exactly what I'm talking about. It's that tendency to be separate that I also have to, and I was an only child too. So I spent, most of my life separate and alone. And to have connection is almost contrary to my entire being, but it's exactly the thing I'm seeking. Figure that one out.
No,
No wonder I drank.
Yeah, but it's that also, you go down another rabbit hole, which is feeling deserving and feeling worthy. And so if I don't feel deserving and I don't feel worthy, then approaching someone and saying I need help becomes even more daunting, because subconsciously there's a little voice saying, you can't ask that person for help. You got to figure
Right.
this out on your own. Who do you think you are? Right. And then, because you don't have, in that moment, you're just not capable. You need connection. So what I'm missing is connection, and I'm not effectively communicating with the people that I have access to. And there's a voice that's saying that I'm not worthy, and I'm not deserving of either love or compassion or understanding or patience.
Right.
And so then I go and I scroll on Instagram, and I try
Right.
or eat a jar of pickles. In my case, it ain't going to be pickles. It's going to be something loaded with sugar or some sort of super rich carbohydrate, whatever. And then go, God, that doesn't feel really good either.
And now I feel too gross to hang out with anyone,
Right.
because I've made myself feel disgusting. That was my MO. It's like, eat myself and then be like, oh, I'm so gross, I don't want to even hang out with you. And then I'm mad at them because I feel gross. It's crazy talk.
Yeah.
But
And you're not mad at them. You're mad at yourself, all this self-loathing. And then it's like, oh, these kids are driving me crazy. And my husband, he wants to hug me,
don't touch me. I'm pizzaed. Gross. Why do you love me? You're an idiot. I don't want to love an idiot. If you love me, you're stupid, and I don't like stupid people.
This is, wow, what a great interview. In the minds of Omar and Meredith. That's truth.
That's terrifying. Everyone's yep, they're all with us. They're laughing their asses off right now.
You are not alone. Okay. The crazy is not specific. It's for all of us. We all get that, and what drives us crazy the most is if you could process it the way we're processing it right now, you'd just laugh about it. But it's not a dialogue in many cases, except for the super negative, really heavy ones. But most of the time it's just this feeling of, I want to go here, but I'm like, something's preventing me from going there. I don't know what it is. And that's all it is. It's, I need to be vulnerable and I don't know how. I need connection, but I don't know how to ask for it. I need connection, but I might not feel like I'm worthy of it and deserve it because I've done all this horrible thing that I've done in the past, right. All this stuff, right? And how do I start from now?
Yes.
How do I start from now? This is why where most of the time people will say, how do I stay in the present? You need to focus on being present. Nothing you can do about the past, but you can do something about the future by staying in the present. Great tangent.
I love a good tangent.
So tell us a little bit about your spiritual condition. Do you have a spiritual practice? What does that look like for the listeners?
Yes. So I grew up in church, like major church. Like I joke with my parents, you guys had me in a cult. And they say, it was not a cult. I'm like, it was cult. And they're like, maybe it was a cult. You know, I mean, that's the kind of conversation. Because it was totally a cult. I mean, it really was. It was crazy pants. And we were there like 4 days a week, you know? And so when they
asked, it? What's the religion?
It was a non-denominational Christian church, but they were crazy pants.
Okay.
And then my parents found a good non-denominational Christian church when I was about 9. But from 5 to 9, there was questionable practices. And so we were in church all the time. And so when I got to teen years, I thought, I don't ever have to go to church again. I went 4 times a week for 12 years.
Hell yeah.
I literally don't have to go back ever. And so that was my argument. And so I really rejected spirituality. Well, I started drinking heavily at around 18, and I rejected God. I rejected my body. I rejected any sort of soul, any sort of dreams and hopes. I gave up. I ballooned up to 250 pounds. I had a suicide attempt. I mean, it was just a hot mess. And so my rejection of life, of God, of church, of politics, of humanity, of love was very active. And I got married, I went to law school, and I would say I sort of plugged back in, but I didn't plug back in until about 3 years ago. Like, let's be real. Like, there was surface, oh, I'm a mother, I love my children, and let's sing Jesus Loves Me. But like, no, I was not even there.
Going through the motions.
Like, it was so bad that my mother-in-law, my stepmother-in-law, bought my kids a book for Easter called Who is Jesus? And I thought, oh my God. They bought my kids a Who is Jesus book. And I was like, you need to get on board. And I don't even know where I fall on Christianity at this point. But my children, like, he's a historical figure, you know, we like, and the fact that I just was that removed from it. Like, Christmas is Jesus's birthday. It is? Oh gosh, you know, those kind of moments. And so my spiritual practice started back with meditation. It started back with God, whoever you are, a female or a male. Mm-hmm. Like, I just opened up. I was like, because the God I had is not the one that I can pray to now. It just can't be. It can't be. And so that is how it has started back. And one thing that I did do is I had this Precious Moments Bible when I was a kid. It was this little brand of Bible. I carried it everywhere. I heavily marked it. I still know like scripture. And I said I wanted to buy a Precious Moments Bible. One of my good friends bought it for me for Easter. So I got this 1985 Precious Moments Bible, and I'm starting to rebuild my spirituality from a place of curiosity. Just like I have a choice, like, what do I want to believe? And I'm starting with the Bible because that's what I know. And I'm going to read and pray. And I write my prayers versus saying them, which feels new and exciting. But I'm very much leaning into the spiritual. It was sort of something I rejected so hard, because anytime I would think about it, especially when you come from a very strong, punitive God, which the cult church was very much revelation, you're going to hell, and anytime I would think about God, God was a very vengeful God. I was terrified. And so when you're an addict and you've done despicable things, and I would start to pray, I'm like, oh, that God is just going to whoop me. Like, this is not going to go well. And then so I would pull away. It was that whole idea of retreating. God came and see me. So realizing now that doesn't have to be that way. And everything in the past is in the past. And all I have is today to self up the future and to pray. And so I'm really at ground zero with it all. And it's beautiful. it's beautiful to know that I don't have to rush this, because there's been this panic in me for so many years. Like if I sin today and I forget and fall asleep, am I going to go to hell in the middle of the night if the world ends? Like that's the kind of stuff that would go through my head. And then my very best friend is Jewish, and we met in law school, and I was like, there's no way going just because she's Jewish, that makes sense. And so it's the whole idea of what does heaven and hell mean to me? Like, do I believe that? Like, what do I believe? What do I feel? And who is my higher power? And what does he or she look like and feel like? And it's amazing. It's an amazing journey. And a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, it's woo woo, because I'm from the deep South, and they won't go along with this in any way. But I will say to them, you have not been at the bottom like I have, then perhaps, because when you're at the bottom, things look different. They look a little different.
They do. And it's really an incredible conversation. I love this conversation because for me, I can relate to all of it. I can relate to all of it. My mother's a Jehovah's Witness, so I was part of a cult too. And so when I left at 18 and walked away from God, it was the same. It's the same story.
Wow.
Same story. It's like, and here's what sucks. Here's what really sucks. Okay. Somehow, somewhere along the way, God got involved, right? He became collateral damage.
Yes.
God became collateral damage because I associated spirituality and God with religion.
Yes.
Two completely polar opposite, completely different things. Okay. That's like, I don't know, going into a candy store and blaming the owner for my cavities. You know what I mean? Like, this is your fault. You know, like, dude, I didn't force you to eat the candy. You know what I mean? I'm just selling it, right? You know, and really, that's probably a horrible analogy right there.
No, I think it's great. I was trying to make a joke about licorice. Like, if you have licorice in your candy store, you should go to hell. But
okay, all right.
I was tracking with you. I was like, this makes total sense to me.
Okay, good. Because I'm thinking, God, the bottom line is this. When I came to the realization that God and religion had nothing to do with each other, everything changed for me. The idea of the God of my understanding changed everything for me. And the dogma is so ingrained in some of us that even if somebody says, well, you know, it says the God of your understanding. Well, I can't just pick my own God. There's so much angst.
Yes.
And look, all these barriers are just up, right? Don't talk to me about God. Don't talk to me about spirituality. I want nothing to do with it. Okay. I knew it, another cult. And
and like, I already got out of the cult. You want to put me back in a cult?
The truth, and my own personal belief is, church is not necessary. Religion is not necessary. What you did, as soon as you said meditation, I go, she got it.
Yeah.
It's a personal relationship where you make a conscious choice to connect with a spirit, something, male, female, whatever allows you to feel comfortable enough to sit in the silence. That's it.
Right.
The only thing that you have to do is be invited or allow yourself to get into that discomfort, and then try and seek that spiritual connection that will guide you through all these thoughts, feelings, emotions, and what's happening, and have faith that what you're feeling and the communication you're getting is actually real.
Right. Yes. And faith, that's so loaded for us,
yes.
Right? I mean, yes, faith. And you're right. To sit down in the silence and to pray, to think, to welcome, to have faith that someone is out there holding you up. That is a huge step for people like us. Huge.
It's massive. And everyone, and I tell this to everyone, everyone has a right to spirituality. Everybody has a right to connect with a higher with a higher power, with a spiritual entity, with some sort, with spirituality. And we've been deprived of it because of the programming, and we've deprived ourselves, because as soon as the programming gets thick enough, we're like, that's it. It's never going to happen again. And I get it, right? If I go into a car dealership, like I've done before, had a bad experience, I'm never buying a car again. Right?
Public transport only.
Right. Exactly.
Right.
And here's the thing too. There's certain religions that actually don't allow their members to meditate.
Yeah. Oh no, I would believe that. Oh no. Like,
you're not allowed.
Totally. No, you can't meditate because you're praying to an idol.
Or you're allowing the demons.
I know.
I mean, it's so crazy, right? Like, I asked this question just in hopes that we can have this kind of a conversation.
I mean, I tell you, I can talk about anything, and I will too. Yeah. I mean, and it was so funny because we went to this gardening store on Sunday, and I saw a little Buddha statue, and I told my daughter, I was like, oh, I want to get that. And then I had a panic attack because I was wearing a mask, and I was like, I'm going to the car. And I left my husband and my kids, and I came out to the car to do Spanish. And so I was sitting there on my phone doing Duolingo, and here comes my daughter with the little, meditative Buddha. And I put it up on my shelf right in the kitchen next to a couple other trinkets. And I thought, oh my gosh, that makes me feel so good. It just makes me feel so good because, one, it just does. Two, because years ago, I wouldn't have been allowed to have it. And it's not an idol. It reminds me to meditate. It makes me grateful. And it's all these things. It's like the rebellion, but also the screw you for picking my spiritual path for me and telling me that I was going to hell. Like, it's all sorts of things. It's reclaiming a lot of the pain that we had to go through. It's so big. It's so big to make this kind of move toward picking for ourselves. And I think that's why I have conversations with my kids are 11 and 12. And we talk spirituality, but I truly want them, and this is where the Christian programming will really mess you up if you let it in, to let them choose. And traditional Christianity is like, if you're not teaching your kids about Jesus and they're not baptized, they're going to hell. And I'm like, my 12-year-old is not going to hell. And if there's a God that is going to send my 12-year-old to hell, I don't want nothing to do with it. So let's just say that. You know what I mean? That's how I feel. And we talk about it, and I'm like, you can pick, there's a million choices, but you're going to meditate. I make them meditate before school for 5 minutes, and they hate it. But I'm telling them, I'm like, this is not religion. This is not this is just a moment that you claim every day. It's just 5 minutes you claim, and you can do whatever you want with it. When you get older, you may find that this is the one thing that you are so glad your irritating mama taught you. Because if I had just known how to sit still for 5 minutes, if someone had taught me that, I can't tell you what would have happened. I think it would have saved me, because to learn it at 40, it's sad, but it's joyful at the same time. It makes me angry. It makes me angry that I didn't know better, that no one taught me, that I was so programmed. But I can't think about that, because if I think for 1 second about the past, it gets so crazy in my head. Then I'm like, booze, food, oxy, cutting. Don't hug me. Oh, I need a hug. That starts that whole train again. But man, spirituality, it is not, if you're struggling with it, it's not what you think it is. I think that's the summary. If you're okay with it and you love Jesus, go forth. You're fine. If you're happy, I'm happy. But if you're struggling with it, it's tough. But when we just accept that there's more than maybe what you grew up with for yourself, I think that becomes a major, major part of healing.
It does. What we do, and I look at it that way. Coming into recovery, I was 30 coming into recovery, and so I was able to reconnect with spirituality, 31, 32, that kind of a thing, and it's completely changed my life. And do I regret all the things that I went through? Absolutely not. because it actually makes my relationship stronger. I don't take it for
Yeah.
granted. I'm not living in
You're not on autopilot.
I'm not an autopilot. I question, I have the ability and I have the right to question everything. That's what self-will is there for. If something doesn't serve me anymore, I change. And that's one of the things that it's a constant for me. And the coaching platform I come from, it's always, if it's not serving you and someone's telling you, if you make a change in your life, it's you being selfish, I'm here to tell you it's not. And
I
so
don't like those people.
it's the programming. When you think about yourself, well, you're just being selfish, right? So at some point, it's like, what's the point? Oxy, alcohol, Twinkies.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
no. So actually, let's go there. Let's go there because I think
Twinkies.
that's super. Yeah, let's. I think right. I just pictured it. So just.
I haven't had a Twinkie in 10 years.
Dude,
but now thanks for putting that in my head, because I'll go to that tonight when I'm struggling. Twinkies.
So let's talk about how addiction has affected your life. What role did addiction play in your life? Because now that we've unpacked this so much, right? This feels like a coaching session, first of all. We've unpacked so much about root cause issues when it comes to Meredith, right? Number one, first of all, it's a cult. Number two, it's my relationship with God and spirituality. And number three, it's the stories running through my head about everything that I do. I'm a bad person. I'm going to go to hell. Trauma. So let's talk about first the first time you drank or used drugs and how that made you feel, and then how that sort of catapulted you into addiction.
Yeah. So I was actually in South Africa the first time I drank. I was an Olympic style weightlifter in high school and competitive. I was overseas. And I was a margarita, my first drink. And I remember thinking, this is how I should feel every day. Oh, this makes sense. This is how normal people feel, because I finally feel normal. And so from that moment, I was after it. I was 17. I couldn't get it because all my friends were in church. And so I found some other people who weren't in church. And I just went down that path, still going to church, but getting there hungover, and my mom giving me the side eye or smelling me, And I just started drinking, and I got out of my house as soon as I graduated high school, went to college, and stayed at college through the summer, because my parents were like, well, if you're not in school, you have to come home in the summer. I was like, well, I'll just take classes and stay up here and drink. And so I did not stop drinking when I started. And I got married very young, 21, which is another reason I kept drinking. Because you get married at 21. And we had a great time. We partied all the time, my husband and I. And I'm still married to the same guy. But so he was my drinking buddy. And I just got fatter and fatter and drunker, and then angrier and angrier. And so I went to the psychiatrist at my university. She gave me some Zoloft. I mixed that puppy with some vodka one night and slit my wrist. I think I'll kill myself tonight. Seriously, that's the kind of ridiculous state
That actually happened?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, straight up. And the most interesting part is I got sent to the ER. I had a 3.0 blood alcohol content, which normally would kill an ox. Dead. I was not dead. And they sent me to a mental institution for 3 days. And then they let me go with no follow-up. And so at that point, I prayed a lot because I was a sinner. And so I was sober for, 3 months. And so what do? You go get married. So I got married to the guy who, saved my life, because he's a masochist, apparently. We should have another episode with that guy, the dear husband I love. And, from there, I went to law school. I drank through law school like a fish. And I had 1 year of sobriety, my third year of law school. I left for the summer, lost 50 pounds because I was also taking speed pills.
Oh.
And I quit drinking. I came back to school, and my friend did not recognize me. I stood there and talked to him for a good 15 minutes before he realized who I was, because I had looked so different. And so that was like a little bit of sobriety, also laced with, diet pills. And then I started drinking again, and from there it was a couple of kids. I did not drink during pregnancy. I was a happy pregnant woman. But then the second those puppies were out, it was pump and dump and drink and practice law and get sadder and fatter and madder until 10 years ago, I started making movements in the right direction. I started working out and I started doing different things to better my health, but I didn't put the bottle down until 4-ish years ago. And, but what happened to lead me to get sober is I was sitting in a parking lot and I had this very real voice that I heard that was inside of me that said, "You're going to be dead in a year."
Mm-hmm.
It was just that simple.
Mm-hmm.
You dead 1 year. And I used to drive down this big hill toward my house and there was a huge tree at the bottom. And almost every day I was like, I could just drive into that tree today. Maybe today will be the day. And knowing I already had a suicide ideation in my past and I was doing this day to day. And one day my kids were in the car and I had the same thought. And I thought, man, this is really bad. This is really bad. But it wasn't until I heard that voice, the intuition, God, whatever you want to call it, that was like, you're dead. You are so dead in a year. You're not even 40 and you're going to be dead. And so I quit. I cold turkey picked a date and quit. And I wrestled it. And, that worked for a while. But like we've talked about, it wasn't until I really came full circle on the spirituality and making amends and working through the stuff with my parents and forgiving them and them forgiving me and healing those wounds that I'm really able to stand here and be like, I think I'm going to be okay today. I think I could do this today. So yeah, it's been crazy.
It's crazy, like super and very intense. And
did I tell you I did 4 Ironmans in there too? Yeah, that was
no.
Funny. Yeah, there's that too.
4 Ironmans while you were drinking?
Oh yeah, because I wouldn't be sober until like mile 80 on the bike. I couldn't. When I quit drinking, I went out to go do a 100-mile ride and I quit at mile 40. I was like, I don't want to do this because I would normally be so hungover. Oh, and I wouldn't realize I was on the bike until, 70 or 80 miles. And then you're almost done. I mean,
wow. You must have been in some incredible physical condition to be able to get that far along in the race and be totally hungover.
I mean, I was like 200 pounds. I was forcing my way through Ironman, just like I used Ironman as a way to overcompensate for my behavior.
Right.
Oh, look at me. I'm so healthy. And really, I drove myself into diverticulitis and I ended up with shingles one time after a race. The whole side of my face was swollen like Sloth from Goonies. I mean, it was...
There's another picture. There's another picture.
It was. I mean, it was like,
that's another picture for you. Okay, so it took you 4 years before you dove into traditional 12-step recovery, or, what was it, 4 years?
Yeah. I mean, this is new. This is fresh. If we would have talked 6 weeks ago, it would have probably been a different line.
Okay, so what was that first year like? I mean, you had to have done something. What were the changes that you made? I mean, you finally had that rock bottom moment where you're in a parking lot and you're like, you're going to die in a year, right? And then probably all these thoughts start flashing in your head, especially the one about you driving down, heading towards a tree with your kids in it.
Yeah.
But at that point I say, and I call that a burning boat moment. That might have been your burning boat moment where not one more day, not one more hour, not one more minute. I'm not going to tolerate this in my life anymore. So what did you do differently in order to successfully stay sober the first year?
Anytime my head said anything about drinking, about darkness, I wrote. I pulled out this crusty journal and I wrote stream of consciousness. I got it out. I had a distinct belief that if this is in my head, it needs to come out.
Yes.
Like, get out of my head and stop obsessing. And then the other thing I did was I changed my position. And what I mean by that is I had a drinking chair. I had a drinking counter I leaned on. And like I would put the wine here, I would lean on the counter, I would talk to my husband. I changed positions. I would sit on the bar stool and have water. I would have fizzy water in a wine glass. Like what I changed all my positions. I didn't sit in my drinking chair. I sat on the couch. And for a very long time after dinner, I just went upstairs. I didn't look at it. And the number one thing, and this is what I tell people in my sobriety group, well, two things really. I did not romanticize the monster. The monster booze abused me. It was like an abusive boyfriend. I'm not going to tell Bill that I miss him and I wish he was hitting me again. Like I did not romanticize my relationship to alcohol. It was a monster and I looked it in the eye for what it was. You almost killed me. You can go to hell. And so that was I didn't pine for it. I didn't think, oh, I wish I could have a glass. No, done. You almost killed me. So that was my mental state. And I worked on that daily. And then I had this saying, I do not make eye contact with a drink. So if I'm out to dinner and people are ordering wine, I don't make eye contact with it. I don't make eye contact with, now the only thing is if I'm at a bar and someone will accost my ears with a martini, that bothers me because that was my drink of choice. And I'll hear shake, shake, shake. And I'm like, la, 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 la. Because I can't avoid, I'm not looking at it, but I'm hearing it. So yeah, those were the things. Like, don't make eye contact, don't romanticize it, get whatever's in your head out on paper, out on video, out on tech, like just get it out and then change your position. And that I just repeated those steps. And then one day, like 3 months in, I was like, I don't need to drink. And it was like, I didn't have to fight it anymore. It just went away. Because the beautiful thing about quitting drinking is you get rewards pretty quickly. You feel better, you sleep better, and you're like, there's something to this sobriety thing. And so if you look at that, it doesn't become as hard as you think it is to quit. But if you're going to pine for it and you're going to miss it and love it, it's going to be a hard road. It's going to be a hard road.
How many times did you have that conversation with you in your life? The conversation where you tried to kill me, I'm cutting you out of my life. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to get this done. There's this, like, as you were even describing that, as you were saying it, I could feel you, right? Like there's the Meredith that needs love and nurturing and is in a lot of pain and needs to soothe. And then there's this Meredith that is a beast that does Iron Man's hungover, right? That is a power lifter, right? Like, so how many times would you say you've had that conversation with yourself where you said, oh, this is happening?
I had that main conversation one time. And when you said to burn the boat moment, like I had that conversation with myself one time and I had it in the mirror like a crazy person.
Right, let's hear
I looked myself in the eye and I said, do you know you are going to be dead in 1 year? You're either going to drive yourself into the tree or alcohol is going to kill you. You have 2 children. You have an audience of people who depend on you to give them inspiration and truth and to speak freely, and you're going to blow it. So I'm going to have this conversation with you right now. You are done. I mean, I had it just like that. And from there, the decision, and this is what Tony Robbins calls your decision, like it happens in an instant. And that was the decision. It was decided. And I tell people, when you want to quit drinking, decide. Just be like, never again. And I know one day at a time, but you have to go at it like, never, ever again are you gonna drink, like never. And that conviction, you will have to remind yourself of it. You'll have to be like, oh, but you promised. Oh, but you said. No, you said. And it's like a cartoon. I know you are, but what am I? I'm a sober person. But you're going to have those. But the come to Jesus, for lack of a better term, that was once. I knew. I just knew. And when you were washed, I feel like I'm going back to church. When you were washed with that divine voice, but when you have a voice that says you're going to die
Yeah.
if you do this again, I mean, and people have told me they've had it. They've heard it too. You don't mess with that.
No, you
That
don't.
that's real.
It's very real, and unfortunately, we all get that. We all fortunately have that grace. We get it. We get that grace, but not all of us listen. And that's the difference between the people that make it and the people that don't. Because I believe we all at some point get that voice. You know,
Yeah.
we just happen to listen when we got it. So what would you say your biggest limiting belief is or was?
My biggest limiting belief is it's myself, and it has always been this way. You have always been overweight. You have always had a temper. You have always jockeyed for love. And I mean, it's the you are always weather report. Lauren Zander calls it the weather reporter. I'm just reporting on my life here. This is how it's always been. Thank you. Back to you, Bob.
Oh
And
God.
so that is my limiting belief. Like, well, I've always been this way. So look at the generations I come from. They've always been this way too. And so the movement forward for me is to stop that nonsense and to realize I have a say in what I do, and I also have a say in what I pass to my kids. The genetics are very strong and very not in their favor. I come from two sides of not only crazy but addicts.
Mm-hmm.
But thankfully, they got tempered with my husband, who's not an addict and doesn't have a lot of it in his family.
Mm-hmm.
But mine is very strong, and so to kill that limiting belief that it doesn't have to be this way. Nothing has to be the way we think it has to be. We have a choice. We have a lot of choices. And yeah.
Beautiful. And it's that word think, right? Because that's all it is. It's thinking, it's thoughts, it's language. We hold ourselves, we prevent ourselves from evolving because there's a language inside of us that says it's too late, you can't do that, that's not for you, you're not you're not deserving, you're not enough, you're not worthy. And it's all just words.
Yeah.
It's language. And once we're able to recognize that, and I'm not saying it's easy because I still have those, the same words are still there, and battling through the emerging process. But knowing the beauty is when you recognize that I know it's just words and I'm allowing those words to control me. I know it's there. I know I'm going to have to do some more work, right? Well, the work never really stops. I'm going to have to do some more work. But the bottom line is once you recognize that the only thing you're battling against is the programming and the limiting beliefs that you have chosen to believe because they're stories.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure that you had some of your biggest breakthroughs when you were writing.
Oh, for sure. The brain dump.
The brain
Absolutely.
dump. The brain dump. So yeah. I wanted to circle back to that because when it comes to, that's why I asked, what did you do in that first year? And when you think about the actions that you take, especially in the first years of sobriety, if you're in a 12-step fellowship, is you're writing. So it's not so much, at times here's a structured way that you can write in case you don't know where to begin. But if you can do mind dumps where you can actually just allow a stream of consciousness to flow out onto the paper, eventually it will make sense. You will land somewhere and go, oh, wow, I think I just let something go here. And really, that's the emotional release that we all need. Yeah. It's a somatic practice to write. You will release that negative energy. You will release some of those toxic negative thoughts and beliefs and language on the paper. And then you're able to, from a new emotional state and from a new belief system, all of a sudden I can move in a different direction. Sound about right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you uncover patterns. you're like, okay, wow, I'm angry.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I realized, that all this time I thought it was sadness or no, it was just rage. I am full of rage. And rage, when not dealt with, often turns on ourselves. And so when I couldn't rage on my parents because I was an obedient child, and I couldn't rage on my boss because you just don't do that and keep a job, I just turned it on myself. And so to see that pattern was very helpful.
I believe, you can take this in whatever way, but anger and rage, because I'm right there with you. Okay, I'm a rageaholic, right? But that's because of all the sadness that I felt from my 6-year-old, that I was deprived so many things as a child, and I felt deprived, and I felt like I was robbed, and I was cheated, and I was, and so there was this deep sadness and regret about things that happened in my life, things that didn't happen in my life. And so triggering that sadness, right, what comes up is this person that wants to defend me.
Yeah.
Because I can't get hurt. I refuse to be hurt anymore. So I'm not going to allow myself to go there, because from that space, I'm just too vulnerable. So I am going to rage. And I've taken it out on my mother, and I've taken it on, God knows how many people I've taken it out of. But ultimately, it's just this idea of I didn't have an opportunity to grieve some stuff.
Yeah.
And really, and so, after, and I think that once you do that, once you're raging on the paper and you're able to get that all out, you go a layer deeper. You go, I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it totally does. In my book, I talk about the truth onion, that you just got to keep peeling layer after layer until you get to the putrid core. And then ding, 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 you win. You found your trauma. Congratulations. Now you can work forward. Yeah.
And I think, and I don't know, I think that if you go a layer deeper, even yourself, right, you'll find that behind all that rage and that anger is some of that is really like, I was a kid. I was a child. How could I have known? I was defenseless. I was helpless. I was trapped in this environment where I was forced to believe a certain way or be surrounded with certain beliefs. I was terrified, really, that every move I made was being judged and watched over. And I mean, like trauma, all this fear. And so, so as soon as you start drinking, the Viking emerges. She is fucking
mad. So she's going to go do Ironmans on ride her bicycle really hard and then do shots at the Burger King.
Oh, nice.
I'm going to go ride 100 miles and then I'm going to do shots in the parking lot with my milkshake, because that's how I roll. I do what I want. I mean, that was a lot of fun, but not constantly.
But here's the funny thing. When you're drinking, that's who shows up.
Yeah, but that's who's always there. I'm right here.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm right here.
And I think that that's what that angry, rageful part of us is there to do, is to shake us and remind us, you've always been this person.
Yeah.
You've always been this person, and you were told that you can't be this person, and that's why you were pissed off. And that's why when you're drinking, it's like, here I am.
Right.
I
don't fight for your right not to party now, but it's the same principle.
It is. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about all the things I read in the beginning, which is like, wow, that's a whole lot of stuff now. So, tell our listeners a little bit about the book, your podcast, because we're talking about a 4-year period of time. You've done seems like a lot has happened in this 4-year period of time. Yeah. Tell us about how all that unfolded.
Well, so I wrote a book about triathlon when I finished doing my first half Ironman, because there just wasn't a book out there that I thought served my demographic, which was like an overweight, tired, drunk mom, lawyer of 2. There just wasn't a market for that book. And so I thought, well, I should write that. And so I did. And it's actually like the Bible for women's triathlon now, because it tells anyone how to go do a triathlon. So it's done very well. And then The Year of No Nonsense is my most recent. It came out just a few months ago in December, and also doing well. But that's about my journey to figuring out what is nonsense in your life and how to cut out the big bleeders so you can kind of really get over yourself and move forward. So it's not a sobriety book, although drinking was my big bleeder. And so there's a lot of sobriety references in there. So if you're looking for some quit lit, it certainly falls in that category, but also doesn't have to be about booze. And so there's that. And then the podcast, the same 24 hours podcast, meaning we all have the same 24 hours in our day. So quit complaining that you don't have enough time. And I just interview interesting people like yourself, as we're going to do, I think, Friday.
I look forward to it. Yes.
And yeah, so I just try and spread, I don't know what I do. I'm so like terrible when it comes to branding and building this business, because I just do what I feel needs to be said or done at any given moment, any given day. That's how I make my living. And that's a little loose and goosey, and it's not well thought out. I don't have a 5-year plan, not specifically, but it served me well to this point. And until I stop seeking and working, I don't know if I'll ever say I've got it figured out. And so, that's kind of the journey. But I'm everywhere at Swim Bike Mom. That was originally my name 10 years ago when I started blogging, and now I'm just kind of stuck with it. Why change it? It's easy to remember. But yeah, you can find me anywhere at Swim Bike Mom, and email, website, everything is swimbikemom.com. So reach out if you want to chat, tell jokes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So hold on. I had another question here. Yeah. Give us some no nonsense. Like when I was trying to figure it out. So The Year of No Nonsense. Okay. And you say no nonsense. And you say, well, drinking is a bleeder. So, I mean, I'm trying to process some of that. So for us that are just get a quick synopsis, what are these no nonsense items you're talking about?
So we all have our own personal brands of nonsense, things that we are doing. The way I look at them is what is standing in the way of your personal health, happiness, and success right now. Close your eyes. What is it? Is it your husband? Is it you? Is it your job? What is it? You know what it is. Okay. And so the book takes you through the exploration of peeling deeper. Where does it come from? How deep is this? What are you using it for? How is it serving you? How is it not serving you? And just recognizing that we all have our own nonsense. And it's not that mine is yours or yours is mine, but that we are doing things personally that are standing in our own way. And so the challenge that I like to leave people with is take 2 weeks. And when you encounter a person, place, or thing that you have to make a decision about, like, should I go to this meeting? Should I hang out with this person? Should I answer this email? Ask yourself, is this nonsense? Yes or no? And people say, oh, how do I know if it's nonsense? Listen to your gut. Your gut will tell you if it's nonsense in a heartbeat. And so all you have at the end of the 2 weeks is a little tiny crate of things that are not nonsense in your life. And you have a garage full of nonsense. And so then you can go open your garage and be like, look at all that nonsense. What do I want to do with it? Do I want to clean it up? Do I want to hoard it? Do I want to make it in a catalog and make index cards? Like, what do I want to do with all this crap I've identified as standing in my own way? And that's all it is. It's a naming system. And then you can pick your path from there, because there's so many books and podcasts telling you how to change your life, and you're the only one that can change your life. And so I like to give people a system. How I did some things it's really what the book should have been called. How I did some things, because that's really all it is. It's like, well, this is how I did some things. I identified some nonsense and I put it in a bucket, and I was like, well, you're going out with the trash. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not people pleasing. I'm not gossiping. I'm not posting on social media. I have a whole chapter on social media, like guidelines to follow. Is this comment going to keep me engaged for the next hour defending it? Yes. Okay, that's nonsense. Why would I post this comment? Carry on. Just practical things to get out of the nonsense, get rid of it, start to see it so you can get on with your life in a big way.
What a great practical book. I'm glad I asked you, because there is, God, and really it's all language again. Okay.
Yes,
So it's
right.
nonsense, and I call it bullshit.
Yes,
So,
that
'cause
was the original subtitle.
Okay.
That was originally the subtitle, and we fought. I didn't want it on there because Target picked it up in Walmart, and they were like, "Well, we're not putting it in here with that word." I was like, "Sweet," because I really didn't want a cuss word in my title. Although the book is very colorful inside, I did not want it on the outside.
Right. I was like, yeah, that's nonsense. I was like, it's fucking bullshit.
Yeah. Yes,
and
that's in there.
Okay, good, because
yeah.
I tell you, man, like the people pleasing and the feeling obligated to stuff and the guilt and all the social media. I love what you just said there too. Like there's been so many times where like I've taken big step backwards away from social media.
Yeah.
Because I cannot, like, you post something and then a can of worms. And then here you are, can't tell you how many times I've had to defend an argument in social media until I got to the point where it was like, really? And for what reason is this important in your life? And so there is,
and you're not changing any minds.
Right. No, you're not changing anybody's mind, right? You're engaging in the nonsense.
Yes. Right.
Wonderful.
And I have to do that all the time because I will see something and I'm like, no. And I'll start typing it and then I'm like, no. You're going to be on this all night. Abort. Go to the kitchen, eat, cut. No, wait, wrong, But it's the same thing. I mean, you have the same thing, social media addiction and getting in fights with people online. That's as bad as eating and cutting. You're doing the same bullshit. It's just another brand. So let's lay out our yard sale of bullshit and figure it out. Like shine the light on it, see the truth, peel the truth onion, which is what I call it, and get to the bottom of it. And a lot of us, the bottom of it is you're an addict. Dun, 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 dun. And it may not be booze, but guess what? You're still an addict. And people don't like that. Oh, they don't like it. People have put my book in the freezer like Joey on Friends. They're like, nope, not this book. I didn't see this book. It doesn't exist. Fine, but it does exist and you will remember it because it will haunt you. So it's that kind of book. It's not a book like Girl Wash Your Face, even though it says that it's in that genre. It's not fluffy. It's not going to hold your hand. It's going to call your bullshit and it's going to show you some things about yourself you will not like, but the truth will set you free, but not before it's done with you.
Yeah, no. And just like anything else, right? Depending on where you're at emotionally and spiritually, it could be when the tough, no nonsense conversations come up, it may be a little tough to embrace because there's a lot of nonsense that we engage in. It's called drama. There's all kinds of names for it.
And it's serving us. I mean, I talk about that too. I'm like, we are getting value from our addictions. We are getting value from our nonsense. So of course you don't want me to take it from you, but at least name it. Let's at least call it what it is. And you go, no, I want to keep it. Okay, keep it. But you know what it is now.
Well, yeah, I call those, it's secondary benefits that you get from anything that's negative in your life. You wouldn't engage in anything, especially negative things, if there wasn't a secondary value that you get from it. So it could be all this drama, but I need attention. So I'm engaging in drama because I get this attention. When I don't do any drama, I get no attention. And I don't know how to get healthy attention. So, but it's all subconscious again. So much of it is this, I don't know why I do this. I do this all the time. And then this happens to me. You're like, yeah, well, there's something, peel that onion layer back and you realize that I'm feeling insignificant. And this at least allows me to feel some semblance of significance because people are paying attention to me. So there's all these things. And then ultimately with the addiction aspect of it, it's a secondary thing as well. I'm only acting out on these things, the cutting, the eating, the alcohol, the drug use, because I don't want to feel a certain way. That's all it is. Like if we can, you have to get, or no, you don't have to do anything. But once you allow yourself to sit in that discomfort, that's where the healing starts.
Right. I call it the shit show autopilot. Like that's what you're on. You know, if you feel like you're on just the stuck spinning, like it's the shit show autopilot, and you're just hit and go every morning, and you're like, it's a shit show, and it is, and you got to take it off autopilot. If again, you said it, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do, but that's the path.
Yeah, once you're able to recognize that somewhere along the lines of I am continuing to have the same things happen to me, or if I still continue to engage in the same things, it can't be everybody else.
Right. My life coach is Lauren Zander. Her book is literally called Maybe It's You.
Maybe it's
and
beautiful.
It's us every time. It really is.
All right. So 2 more questions. More questions.
I have to go in 5 minutes. I'm going to talk shortly.
Great.
If I can.
Yeah, absolutely. What is the best suggestion or advice you have ever received?
Oh, geez, that's a good one. Can I ask a friend? The best advice I've ever received. I think it's the new one. I think it's the Maybe It's You. I think just that, you know what? If you think you're blaming other people, if you think this is all this, that, no, it's just you. And that's not really advice so much as like a way to look at the world. But if you can look at everything from maybe it's me, then you feel like you have a little bit more say in your choices, and you feel like you have a little more control, even though we're all about surrendering here. But yeah, I think examining yourself and realizing that you're getting triggered and angry because someone else is doing something that you're doing in another way, or the same way, you know, those who are hating people cheating are the ones cheating, you know, that kind of stuff has been very valuable.
Yeah. Serenity prayer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. There you go. You're right. That's good advice.
Yeah, no, but that's serenity prayer right there.
Yeah.
In a nutshell. Sure. In a nutshell. Okay. What is one final parting piece of wisdom you would like to share with our listeners?
I would like for you to forgive yourself. I think that has returned that's the biggest return on my investment, because I can't do anything about it. And if you're going to get stuck in what you've done, you're going to be stuck there forever. And so my parting advice and words of wisdom and love, if I have any wisdom, and I do have love, is just forgive yourself. There is a lot of good on the other side of that forgiveness.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Meredith, thank you so much for joining us.
This was great. Thank you.
And fun. All right. Yes. All right, folks, we've now reached the end of our show. Thanks for joining us. And as we say here in Costa Rica, pura vida.
Pura vida.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the SHAIR Podcast. And be sure to click subscribe to the SHAIR Podcast YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, on all the major social media platforms. Go to our website, the SHAIR Podcast. Go to my website, omarpinto.com. Find out about joining the SRC, the SHAIR Recovery Community, or one-on-one coaching with me by setting up a free consultation. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week on the following SHAIR Podcast episode.